All right, looks like we are live. Lorato and Jordaan, I'm just going to ask you to mute your lines real quick. You can see we've got a few people joining us here as well. So let's make sure that we are in fact live. I'm going to post a question in the chat here. If you could please go ahead and respond. So please let us know your role and organization. As soon as we see some responses coming through, we'll know that we are live and you can hear us okay. There we go. I can see a few more people joining us. Good stuff. So welcome. As you do join, please let us know your role and organization. Let us know that you can hear us okay and that we are in fact live. Might be a bit of a delay with the internet this morning, so let's see. There we go. A few more people coming in. Excellent. Taniko, good to have you here. Thank you so much for that confirmation. Perfect. So we are officially live. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Finance Indaba Network webinar. My name is John Dean, and I'm the CFO Community Manager for CFO South Africa. This morning, we are touching on a very crucial and important topic, titled quite aptly as well. I know that a lot of us have been experiencing some pretty challenging times, both professionally and personally, and a lot of us have been asking the question, are we going to be okay? The good news is yes, we are, and in order to ensure that, we've got two finance leaders with us today. So we'll be having a panel discussion with Jordaan Burger, who's the Regional Finance Director for SAGE, Africa and the Middle East. Jordaan is also very heavily involved in setting the commercial strategies for SAGE and plays a very, very active role in terms of strategy, giving advice, and ensuring that SAGE continue to success as they have done in the past. We also have Lorato Nkabenda who's joining us. Lorato is currently the CFO of Future Proof South Africa and is also an executive board member. So without further ado, Jordaan and Lorato, let me invite you to come on camera as well. There we go. Good morning. Let's go ahead and remove the slides so we can see you in all of your glory. There we go. Perfect. So morning and welcome to the session.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having us.
Great to be here. Thank you, John.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just to kick things off, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has really brought to the forefront various gaps and inefficiencies, and we've discussed this at length, where various finance departments have gone through tumultuous times and various different challenges. Lorato, maybe we can come to you first, and I'm just interested to hear, what have some of your observations been around the inefficiencies and how you've seen them affect business?
I think the biggest inefficiencies that I've seen is obviously around systems and having quite a lot of stuff being done manually and being done by the finance teams. And since like having to print out, I'll give you an example, having to print out invoices and these invoices aren't coming through an accounting system, having to do all of that and all of these reports that needed to be printed out instead of them just being on a cloud system where everyone can get it. So those inefficiencies have been quite evident in my experience since COVID-19, since people can't be in the office printing and everything else.
Okay. So it sounds like purely from a tech standpoint.
Yes, and also just relying heavily on the finance teams to do the management reporting, and these management reports having to be sent out to executive members via email versus them being able to see what is happening on a dashboard on a system in real time.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lorato. Jordaan, some of your observations?
John, I think I fully agree with Lorato. I think the change is just phenomenal. I think the speed, the pace has just picked up with COVID-19. It's always been challenging for us to keep up with the times, with the tech, with changing circumstances in business, but the pace is just phenomenal now. I think practically the biggest challenge I've seen is for us to move to working remotely and managing remote teams. That's a skill all of us suddenly had to learn. I've been working from home, I think, for about 7 months now. Our offices are still closed. We don't have any staff working from our offices, and we're fully operational. But that suddenly brought to the fore the ability which a lot of leaders have to manage those remote workforces. You have to ensure that your customers are still getting the same level of service they're used to. You need to ensure productivity levels remain the same. And also new challenges in terms of compliance and cybersecurity, just because of this new way of working.
Yeah. And I guess over and above that, it's also just the kind of emotional stress and strain that not only we are taking on as finance leaders, but now also forced to kind of manage that for our team members as well. So how have you managed to do that?
Well, I think what's important, sorry, Lerato, for going first, I think what's important is to keep that human interaction with your team. So I start off every day with a team call. Sometimes it's very much focused on what it is that we need to do in terms of output, whether it's month end or year end or quarter end or budgets, sometimes very task orientated. But sometimes it's just making sure that everyone's fine, everyone's online, everything's good, and we can all do our day's work.
I have to agree. Mine has been obviously having the team meetings daily, but also having dedicated meetings with my individual team members to find out where they're at, how they're coping, what do they need, what support do they need now. Communication is very important. And in terms of video calls, just so you can see people and feel like you're there, be like, please switch on your video, so we all see each other and we still have that interaction. And sometimes I ask, let's go have lunch together, as in you have lunch in your house and you sit. It's important to communicate. It's important to give that performance feedback regularly. And it's also important to just ask people, what do you need support with? That's how I've managed to help my team navigate.
That's awesome. Thanks, Lerato. And thank you very much, Jordaan. I just want to go back to something that both of you touched on earlier. And you both spoke about the kind of technology components in terms of ensuring success generally. But I think most importantly, during and through lockdown or during this COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that fairly recently, Sage embarked on an extensive research project with Worldwide Works and Arthur Goldstuck. And I think there were over sort of 300 finance leaders that were interviewed. And some of the findings of that research was that organizations and finance professionals who adopt technology were, of course, better suited for what we were to experience during the kind of COVID-19 pandemic. There are still hundreds, if not thousands, of finance professionals who are still quite behind the curve and maybe don't have their processes or their platforms in place. So I'd love to hear from the two of you, what would be a good starting point? I mean, there's all these different resources and options available. Where do we start? What's one of the most crucial things to get going with?
John, I think the most crucial thing to get going on is, I always speak about cash flow forecast, the 13-week cash flow forecast. So it's being able to have a technology that allows you to make decisions that are informed and very quickly. So somewhere where you can get your real-time data that supports the decisions that need to be made now. Unlike before, with everything that's constantly changing because of COVID, you don't have that time lag to make decisions. Sometimes the decisions that impact the business that are major need to be made now. So you need technology that can give you real-time data, real-time insight, so that you can make well-informed, reliable, and trustworthy decisions.
Okay, nice. Okay, thank you, Lerato. Jordaan, what did you add?
John, I think the concern I'd like to highlight is I think a lot of people are waiting out the storm. A lot of people have seen COVID-19 hit, business especially, and gradually we've come out of these lockdown stages and we're in lockdown stage 1 now. But if we look a bit broader than our borders, we'll see that Europe is being hit by a second wave. So it's very likely that South Africa will go the same direction. And you have to ask yourself, are you better prepared this time around for a severe lockdown situation? If your strategy was to just weather the storm and wait for everything to return to normal, I think you may be ill prepared for what's bound to happen. Technology plays a massive role, like Lerato said. The whole world is digital. We've got lots of data, and we need to, in our businesses, focus on analyzing the data, telling the story behind the numbers, strategic thinking, and elements such as that. So on a practical level, to come back to your question, things that I think people can do: go cloud with your software, all of your software. There's just a lot more in terms of flexibility, agility, lots of benefits I'm not going to go into now. And focus on your customer. Make sure that you can still service your customers, even if we go into maybe a second severe lockdown situation. So I don't think time has run out, but we need to remind ourselves that we can go backwards again.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something as well, John, in this technology and what Jordaan has said. Do you have the technology that allows you to interact with your customers and also the other members of your organizations that have to input into maybe your models, your financial models as a CFO? You want the one place where your customers can input, where your other divisional managers can input, so that it's interactive and we can work together. The things of working in silos is not working anymore, because everybody needs to be making a decision that's going to make the company not only survive, but thrive currently. And you use technology so all of us can collaborate in one place and we can all make a decision right now together.
Okay. And I think the same goes even from just aside from the sort of the finance components of it, just a platform where we can kind of communicate and engage with peers. I mean, I remember in the early sort of stages of lockdown, we created like a WhatsApp group where we would have kind of daily check-ins, just ensuring that everyone is okay, both kind of personally and professionally. So it's super important to stay on top of that as well. So I think aside from the kind of technological aspects, what are some of the other skills that you believe both businesses and individuals need to adopt in order to remain resilient for this imminent second wave that we're going to be experiencing?
I'll go first this time, Lerato.
Yeah.
I think if the whole world is going automation and AI, your skills need to go the same direction. So I think finance professionals of the future need to be sure that they fit with that picture where everything is being automated, where we're working with more and more data, where the analysis and the live metrics are more important. So I think with that shift, we need to ensure that we stick to building those skills out. I was in a development session, a SaaS development session the other day, and the presenter made clear that it's no longer in a SaaS business such as Sage good enough to look at your key metrics on an annual basis. I think everyone knows that. Nor is it to look at it on a quarterly basis, nor is it to look at it on a monthly basis. You need to be able to follow your key metrics in your business almost on a daily basis. If you can do it daily, you'll have an advantage. So I think that's becoming more and more important. So it's that technological mindset when we think about skills that we really need to focus on.
Lerato?
I'd say you have to be cross-functional because there's a lot of uncertainty. So if you're not cross-functional and you don't have business acumen and you're not involved in all areas of the business, I don't mean you're running all areas of the business, but being involved, being knowledgeable, being adaptable, you're literally going to be waiting for somebody else to give you information to make a decision that impacts your future. So you need to be interested. And by interested, you need to know what it is that is happening in your organization. So I'll say interesting, diverse, agile, adaptable, because you need to know what's happening in sales. You need to know what's happening with your customers. You need to know what's happening in HR so that whatever decision happens, you are prepared for it. You can adapt. And if you're not cross-functional or you're not knowledgeable or you're not interested in what's happening, you're waiting for somebody else to make the decision. And you're waiting for somebody to tell you what's happening. Be prepared so you know what it is that needs to be done now so that you're prepared and well educated to be able to make decisions that impact the future.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Lorato. Actually, in the build-up to this, just when we're having our own informal discussion, both of you brought up the significance or the importance around being sort of agile and being resilient. But those are not necessarily skills that come naturally to all of us or any of us. And we need to be able to adopt them immediately, but also try and help and support our team members. So what are some of the ways that you did that within your organizations?
Okay, I'll start with me. So I'm a CFO of Future Proof, and also I consult in my other part-time business. And one of the things that I'll make sure that I'm agile is involving myself in meetings that have got nothing to do with what I'm doing. So I'll sit in a sales meeting, I'll sit in a marketing meeting, I'll make sure that I join company-wide team meetings so that I understand what is going on and what everybody is busy with. That's one thing. With agile and everything, you just literally have to make sure that you build your relationships with all the members of your community. And by community, I mean the people that you're working with. If your community is the executive team, you're building relationships with those people. And everybody else in the office, send out a meeting and find out what everybody else is doing in the company. That's how you build resilience, and that's how you build adaptability.
Nice. I like that. Thanks, Lorato. Jordaan?
John, I think if we actively encourage things like innovation, it goes a long way. I remember from a previous company I worked for, the MD there was so passionate about innovation. He would send people home. That back then we were still working from the office predominantly, but he would send people back home for 2 weeks and said, well, go and work on something which will change what you're doing going forward, and allowing people to do things like that. I've got for my team for this upcoming quarter, I've set them a challenge to go and identify a single process in our business which is prohibiting us from moving at pace, and see if they can either change or just completely remove that business process. So it's about continuously looking at elements like that. For us as finance professionals, we're very right brain orientated, so we need to force that creativity as long as we don't do creative accounting.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. I like that. So we've been running, there's a project we're busy with. And one of the things we were being challenged with was that the script we were running wasn't working and it was giving us errors. So me and one of my team members, a young 22-year-old, we didn't really want to escalate the problem. So we sat and read the code to figure out what we can change so that it can work. And we've literally just learned how to code. It's not like we IT gurus now, but we've learned a new skill, how to run a code so that we can run the report that we want easily and effectively, and it worked.
So what I'm hearing, Lorato, is we need to be a lot more kind of open-minded and a lot more willing to take on risks or to try new things as well.
Yes, to just learn how to make your job, how to do things effectively, learn a new skill, something that you can use. That's how you're going to learn how to be adaptable and agile.
Perfect. Nice. Thanks, Lorato. Lorato, obviously, I know that you've worked with several entrepreneurs, both at Future Proof. You've worked with quite a few business owners in your own personal capacity. And Jordaan, we know that Sage has a massive footprint over sort of Africa and the Middle East with more than 200,000 customers. So I'm interested to hear a couple of stories where you've seen or where you've learned rather some great lessons, either from businesses' successes during this time, or perhaps they didn't take the right steps and they failed, and it's something that we can learn from without giving the company names, obviously.
I have a company whose 90% of their business was contact business. So they relied on seeing their customers, providing the service, and it was a training company. And what they did was having to immediately, within a week, take all of their content and put it on an LMS system so that they're able to reach that quality. They're able to reach their customers, but still provide that quality and that human interaction. I was quite impressed with their ability to adapt and also learn how to use the technology that they have very, very, very quickly. So I've liked that. And I have another company where it was a construction company and they needed to know what it is that they can do, because we haven't been building for almost maybe it was 4 months. and they were able to get an accounting software that could help them with their financial planning and help them understand where they can cut costs. And they were able to survive and get at the end and carry on.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you. Nice to hear those success stories. So lots we can take from those. Jordaan, in your experience?
John, I'm going to tell you a Sage story, not a customer story. So I think when this lockdown hit, we had to act quickly. And that's key, I think, for businesses. If you're a small business, it's a lot easier to execute. You've probably got 1 or 2 or 3 decision makers that can make a decision in a short period of time. The bigger the company is, the more difficult it is. So when we saw that South Africa was headed to this COVID path and potentially a lockdown, we had to very, very quickly get our workforce working remotely. And we've got just over 1,000 colleagues in South Africa. So to get 1,000 colleagues of ours working remotely in a short period of time, we followed a shotgun approach. We could make the decisions. We had a committee, a COVID-19 committee. We could make the decisions quickly. So the shotgun approach was in terms of data and data providers. So we literally got all of the data providers out there to give us SIM cards, whatever SIM cards they had. There was a shortage at that point in time, both from a SIM cards point of view, but also from a commercial offering point of view. So we had people signing up in their personal capacity. We had the company signing up as a customer with these data providers. We paid stipends to some of our colleagues to go and get their own Wi-Fi solutions. And eventually, just before the lockdown started, we literally had 100% of our workforce working remotely. Then when the dust settled, obviously we need to get back to things like efficiency and cash flow. And that's where we had to go and revisit that shotgun approach to see what's the better long-term solution and slowly switch and migrate people to the better solution. So I think it's about continuously thinking about your approach and continuously seeing where you're headed and what you're doing. With regards to our customers as well, we have to remind ourselves that our businesses are nothing without the customers that we have. So we need to make sure that the relationship between our customers and Sage, that it's a dialogue. And that sounds like a cliche thing to say. And we always think about the one element, which is the obvious one. You need to listen to your customers. And that's something which is good and which we need to keep doing. But the other side of that is we need to communicate better with our customers. We need to be better at telling our customers how they can engage with us. We need to be better at telling them what the products that they currently have can do better for them in terms of new features, in terms of functionality and all of that. So it's very important, I think, to remind ourselves that we need to be customer focused. Also for Sage now, with this new year that we're entering, we've made that our priority. So our slogan for this year is start with the customer. So I think it's good for all businesses to keep reminding themselves of that customer focus.
Yeah, vital. I remember on one of our recent CFO community conversations, we had one of the CFOs online who said that they host kind of monthly webinars for all of their customers and clients. And it's very much an open forum. And the idea is any concerns or any questions that you may have, now's the opportunity to address them. We'll try and address all of them right here, right now. And those that we can't, we can sort of address at a much later stage. And the value you get out of there is sometimes we know what the customer challenges are. Sometimes we think we know what the customer challenges are. And there's times that we have absolutely no idea to some of those things that aren't being expressed. So they find that to be super, super helpful. So I think just based on the conversation that we had now, I'd love to get a quick feel and test for the room around how COVID-19 has affected other people's businesses. So let's put that poll up now. So you should see a poll displayed above the chat now. So go ahead and respond to that. Let us know how COVID-19 has affected your day-to-day business processes, please. Got 3 options there: severely, still trying to align, and then minimal effect in business as usual. So let's see what people have to say. Okay, great stuff. Can see some of those responses coming in. Please also know that this is very much an open forum. So if you have any specific questions for Jordaan and Lerato, go ahead and type them in the chat. We also received some questions in the build-up to this program, which we'll be addressing towards the end of our session here today. But let us know what questions you have for Jordaan and Lerato. Okay, can see those questions, rather the responses coming in. Okay, we'll give you about another 10 seconds. Can see that dial still moving. Wow, this is actually very positive. Okay, a few more seconds. All right, so we can see that out of the entire audience here, 11% of people were severely affected with regards to redefining the internal processes. 35% of our audience are still kind of feeling those effects and still trying to manage and align processes. And then look at the last one, 52% of the audience are experiencing business as usual, and there's been minimal effect to their businesses. What are your thoughts on that, Jordaan and Lerato?
I think it's interesting, John, and it obviously depends on which industry you operate in. So we've seen COVID have a massive impact on some industries and some industries not being affected. This makes me think of a customer story during lockdown level 5, where a customer could literally not do their payroll because they could not drive to the office, go into the office and process the payroll. And that's where we've been focused historically, or we've been trying historically to sell cloud software and to drive people towards the cloud. But it took that special circumstance to make the light go on for that one customer, that if they had a cloud solution, it wouldn't have been an option or an issue for them. So I know there are clever IT options, workarounds around that. You can remote access into the server and process it that way, or find some other alternative. But with everything changing so quickly, there's just too many benefits from cloud software. And I think now for the first time, people are seeing those benefits, and the circumstances are actually doing the selling for us. So depends from industry to industry, I think, what the effects are. But technology touches all of us, whether it's even if you're a retailer, it's going to touch you. Even if you are a Takealot, as an example, where you've historically sold all of your products on a delivery basis, still you need to think about elements such as your ERP systems, your payroll, etc. So it does touch in every industry.
Sure. Lerato?
I was one of those people who were affected about our payroll sitting on my computer and me needing to be connected to the work network. So I felt that. I actually agree with some of the responses, and it actually depends on industry. It also really did depend on the technology that you had for you to be able to carry on business as usual. Everybody was on cloud. The customers that I know that were on cloud were easily able to adjust. Just give people some Wi-Fi or money to get Wi-Fi or internet connections, and they were able to move. The rest of us in some businesses where everything was reliant and everything is sitting on the network, and a lot of people don't even have VPN to get into, and everything is dependent on people being at the office. Those companies really struggled with workflow, with interacting with our customers. And one big thing, people who didn't have a portal where customers could go and log their complaints or their queries, where you're still dependent, I know in schooling environments, of customers picking up the phone, dialing and saying, "Hi, can I please speak to Lerato? Please, can you check what my statement is?" Those companies really struggled because suddenly they couldn't offer that customer service to their customers, and they couldn't interact with their customers as efficiently as they could, because the only way to reach them was through the phone or email, and not where you can track.
I want to ask a follow-up question here with another poll and see if that gives us some insights to the 52% who kind of experience minimal business effects. So you'll see another poll displayed over the chat, and this one is asking what resulted in your previous answer. Was it around your own robust technology systems? Did you have an agile workforce? Or were you just in an industry that wasn't affected too drastically by COVID-19? I know that there's perhaps one or two or maybe even three of these which apply to you, but go ahead and select the most relevant answer for it here. I think I've got an idea as to which way this is going to swing.
Can you tell beforehand?
I can't tell beforehand, but just based on the 52%, if I did, Lerato, I would have won the lotto on Saturday.
John, whilst we're waiting for those answers to come in, I think it's important for us to be honest with ourselves as well. So technology is not a quick fix. It's not about just throwing software into any system and thinking that technology is going to solve everything for you. So that's a good starting point, but you need the right people in the right positions as well to use the technology. And it doesn't happen overnight. Yes, you can make small changes here and there to better gear yourself for maybe something like a second lockdown. But it's not the be-all and end-all, and it's not as easy as just buying software to solve all of your problems.
Sure.
I have to agree with you, Jordaan. Technology has to be a partner. I would like to say technology is your business partner. You need to make friends with it. You need to embrace it. You need to work with it and understand it. So as much as it is helping you make quick, effective, informed decisions, but you need to work with it. So it's not technology alone. It's technology and team and people. And you personally need to know how to use it, what you need it to do for you, because you're the one that drives it effectively.
And that's exactly what we've seen in our poll here. So we can see that most organizations were not too affected, and purely because of that agile workforce. So that goes back to the pre-conversation we had here around resilience and being agile, and just ensuring that we are prepared for the kind of future. And that leads me back to the SAGE CFO 3.0 research, where Arthur Goldstuck interviewed sort of 300 senior finance leaders and clearly identified 3 distinct kind of senior finance professionals or sort of CFO roles. So we have the CFO 1.0, who would be the kind of historian, taking a backward look at sort of historical information to form decisions. We've got the CFO 2.0, where I think a lot of us find ourselves now. So we're using modern tools and technology. Perhaps we've automated some of our components, and we're getting some info in real time. And then most importantly, the organizations where they had the most success and CFOs who had the most successful sort of finance teams was the CFO 3.0, who's the visionary. They're looking forward. They are able to provide strategic advice, and they're kind of more of a business partner to both their CEO, executive team, and the organization. So I think just based on that, it's pretty evident that the aim and the goal is to kind of move as close to that CFO 3.0 mentality as possible. And I'm interested to hear from the two of you how having those real-time sort of insights and data and being a strategic partner to your CEO has helped your organizations get to where they are.
John, that research has shown that if you're not going to be the one driving the change and the digital transformation in your organization, you're surely going to play a big role in guiding your CEO, as an example. So it is crucial for organizations to have access to the data, to the live data, the live metrics, because our decisions need to be data-based. But on a more practical level, we want to be thinking more about the future. And to buy ourselves time to think about the future, that's where we need this technology to play the processing role for us. That's why we have to automate. That's why we need to embrace elements such as AI to buy ourselves time to focus on that strategic future thinking and to drive the change in organizations.
John, we need to understand, maybe we need to start with defining what CFO 3.0 is. It is the value driver. You are a finance business partner. That's what it is. You need to be able to give value to the business, and you need to be a partner to the business. And the only way to do that is to obviously use your technology, have people skills, have business acumen. I'll give you an example. Futureproof was also a contact company. We teach entrepreneurial skills to children. And the way that we did that is that we'll host workshops where children will come and build a business, like build a cupcake business and learn that. And suddenly, and also went to schools and worked with schools. And when everything happened, we didn't have over 95% of our income. We didn't. So we needed to make decisions, and decisions now. And I came in just when COVID started about what it is that we're going to be able, how we're going to make money, how can we adapt, what can we do? And I needed to have the technology so that any idea we have, any avenue we want to do, I needed to be able to analyze the profitability now analyze how it's going to impact the business now. In anything that you do, I need to be able to give Lisa, our CEO, what this is going to look like at the end. Not tomorrow, not next week, not in 6 months' time. We didn't have 6 months. We only had enough cash flow to last us for 3 months. And now we have enough to last us until whenever.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Laura. So thank you so much. I was actually going to ask why it's so important to kind of make that transition from the historian CFO 1.0 to maybe someone who's adopting a little bit more tech and looking a little bit forward to that visionary kind of CFO. And I think you've answered that. Jordaan, anything additional you would add to that?
I think it's more of a mindset. I think we don't need to feel threatened by technology. We need to embrace it. We need to make sure that our teams embrace the technology. And like I said, it's for buying ourselves time to do more of that strategic thinking and guiding the business in terms of direction.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just thinking of the kind of CFO 3.0, we've discussed some of the traits of successful organizations. What are some of those personal or what are some of those key competencies outside of agility and resilience that we need to adopt and embrace to move from CFO 1.0 or CFO 2.0 to that value driver CFO 3.0? What tips and advice could you share with other CFOs and finance leaders?
I would say, obviously, your business acumen and understanding operations and some of the ways that you can do that is getting involved in projects that are outside of your areas, working with other divisional managers or other executive team members. Be interesting. And the only way that you're going to be interesting is if you are interested. That's what and being interested is read up, get involved in your community, find out what everybody's doing in your community. That's the only way. And we also there's other researches that has been done that give you detailed competencies that the future CFO needs. Find out what those are. Being one of them is obviously technology savvy and analytical, business acumen, and strategic.
Thanks,
and
Laura.
people's person, the most important.
People skills, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, people skills, yes.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree with you more, Leratu. I think in a technology discussion like today's, it's very easy to focus on the technology and to say that future finance professionals need to be able to work with a lot of data and need to be strong on analysis, etc., etc. But the human element is always going to be there. We've got a very big advantage in terms of finance professionals, I think, and that's because we understand the numbers already. All of our training is geared towards understanding the numbers, and for lots of people, that's a very complex thing to grasp. So we've got the advantage that we understand numbers already. We need to focus on the other skills. We need to focus on those soft skills, which Leratu has said, focus on creativity, focus on problem-solving skills, but also leading people and being there for people, listening and making sure that our decisions are to the benefit of those people working for us.
I just want to touch on those sort of the people skills a little bit, because traditionally the perception of a finance leader or an accountant is that there are these sort of numbers people, but more and more we've seen this transition into being a lot more kind of people focused and a lot more strategic. So with that perception or with those natural instincts of only being number crunchers, I mean, how do we develop these people skills and personal relations?
Okay, I'll say get a mentor.
Okay,
Find a leader, get a mentor. I've got a mentor, and I'll tell you that I call them all the time. I have a people issue, and I don't know how to handle it because let's be honest. I went to school, I learned accounting, I learned audit, finance, tax, and then I was put in an environment and I was told to lead people. And no one had ever taught us that. So the first thing that they did, I'm lucky that when I was at Imperial, they invested on me and they took me in a leadership program where I learned leadership skills and I learned people skills, but also having a mentor, somebody who's a more conscious leader than you, and they can help you navigate the people skills. Be interested in the people that you are leading. Be interested in the people that you work with. Be interested in every person that you interact with. That's how you develop leadership skills. Hey, John, how are you doing? What's going? What projects are you busy with today? That you'll learn a lot about John from there. So interacting with people and being interested would help you develop those. And then also be self-aware and take feedback. Somebody tells you something that you did that they didn't like or they liked, use it, be self-aware, be conscious, and make an effort. That's how you learn people skills.
Nice. Thanks, Lerato.
A mentor is a great idea. I think one can do reading to further bolster your capabilities. But I think the most important thing for me is to be invested in those relationships. So back when we were in the office, I don't take my mobile phone into a meeting. I try and keep it in my pocket. I don't put it on the table. I don't turn it facing down on the table so that people have got your fullest attention. Now that we're working remotely, by switching on your camera, like Lerato has said, you show people that you are invested in whatever they are saying, whether you 2 people in the meeting, whether you 20 people in the meeting. The fact that your camera is on shows that you are there, that you are engaged in the conversation, that you are listening. And I think that goes a long way to valuing people's input and to build those relationships.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks, Jordaan. Thanks a lot. You mentioned around the topic of kind of reading to help with personal development. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask the two of you is, to ensure that we remain relevant and we stay at the top of our game, what are some of the things that you both do, either in your personal or professional capacity, to stay on top of trends? So it could be webinars, reading, journals, newspapers. What are some of the things that you do? Let's start with you, Jordaan, and then we'll come to you, Lerato.
I think in terms of technology, there's some good info on our website with regards to CFO 3.0 especially, and also on Sage Intact. I'm a big fan of the content that CFO South Africa put out there, the podcasts and all of that. So that's a good resource to use. Personally, I'm a big Simon Sinek fan in terms of leadership skills. So I can highly recommend his stuff. And then a very old book, I think this is potentially challenging for us as finance professionals, is to show that engagement in a conversation, to make small talk before we get down to business. So there's a very, very old book called, it's by Dale Carnegie, and it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. A very, very old school book, but I found that very valuable in building those relationships and just to learn you some tips and tricks with regards to engaging with other people.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Thanks for those. Lerato, how about you?
I'm part of a number of CFO networks on LinkedIn. So I always read on what's happening, join webinars where they can. I read a really, really awesome book called The Rockstar CFO by Jack McCullough, I think. And he's linked also to the CFO University. And they've got a forum as well where people send questions and they send insights. So I'm quite involved in the finance community. I also follow people that do stuff that is unrelated to me on LinkedIn. And when something, I'm very interested. That's one thing about me. So if something catches my eye that is not even related to me, that is probably got to do with entrepreneurial skills or got to do with soft skills, I'll read it, I'll watch it, I listen. I listen to a lot of CFO South Africa content when I'm driving, put it on, listen, drive. It's a good way to pass time, good way to get knowledge. And I'm very interested in the future CFO. I've been interested about the future of finance since probably the beginning of last year. So just Googling researches that I've done and reading up on that.
That's awesome. Thank you. And just for the record, both Lerato and Jordaan mentioned CFO South Africa independently. We definitely did not script that. So thank you both for this positive accolade. I just wanted to remind the audience that we have time for Q&A. And I know that we did receive a couple of questions in the build-up to this. And Narissa, I see your question there in the chat as well, so we can address that to Jordaan in just a moment. So just a reminder that there is time for Q&A here. Jordaan, I think the question Narissa's asking is a little bit tricky, and I'm not sure that any of us have the exact answer regarding the economy being sort of close down to the same extent or scale or level of lockdown again. But I'd love to hear your views around that. I don't know if you can see the question in the chat. And then Lerato will come to you next as well. Okay.
And that's a great question, Arissa. So I think, first of all, what I need to highlight is, yes, we were fortunate to have the technology, but it wasn't because we were seeing it coming. So if you think about the fact that we have a call center for customer support, we were lucky that we embraced the system that we did a while back already, enabling people to work remotely. And that wasn't planned for COVID specifically. So I think if you stay in touch with technology as it moves and develops further, you just have a better chance of striking it lucky, maybe, if something like COVID or a lockdown hits. And then with regards to my personal thoughts on whether it's going to happen again or not, I think that the trends tend to follow what's happening elsewhere. So we could see the lockdown coming from the fact that Europe at that point in time were in their winter, that they were implementing lockdowns and all of that. And it was just a matter of time before it hit South Africa. So I think if we're currently looking at those trends again, there's a very good chance of us going into a second lockdown.
What did you add, Lerato?
Yeah, following the trends, I also think it's likely. But even if it doesn't happen, I'm prepared for it. My team's prepared for it. My customers are prepared for it. I'm prepared for whatever happens. We've looked at all the different scenarios and we've prepared for all of those.
Okay, perfect. In the build-up to this, we asked a pre-question around what people wanted to learn and find out. And a nice question from Max Rabalajo, which kind of leads on to that question is, how much is going to change in the next few months, particularly once COVID-19 has passed? And then interestingly enough, are our teams expected to learn and readjusted to the old normal again? So what are your views on where we are now? Are we going back to things the way they were, or will there be a kind of hybrid in the middle? And how do we support our teams in that process?
I'm going to sit back and listen to Lerato first.
Okay.
Normal's gone. There's a new normal now. Actually, it's not even normal because it's constantly changing. Normal's gone. There's a new normal. There's not even a mixture of between this is our normal. How do you prepare our team? Upskill your team. Know what skills that they need to adapt to the future that we're going to. If AI is where we're going, upskill your team. Can help your team navigate? Can they embrace technology? Do they have the skills for the future? If you don't know what the skills of the future are, maybe we should research those and make sure our team has got those skills so that they can adapt to the future. And also finding better ways that my team can communicate to its customers. And by its customers, I don't mean external parties only. Your ExCo management team is your customer. Your IT department is your customer. HR, everybody's your customer. How do I help them? How to become a partner to them? And where I fall short, can I get those skills?
Nice.
John, I think from a business perspective, we shouldn't panic, and we shouldn't worry just for the sake of worrying. Yes, we can prepare for what's next, and we can try and make sure that our businesses are better prepared to deal with ever-changing circumstances out there. But I think we need to, in the long run, stick to our plans, the plans that we had even pre-COVID to build our businesses. Those plans would contain focus areas such as cash flow preservation, boosting of revenue, etc., and remain customer focused. Like I said earlier, our businesses are built around the customers. We need to listen to our customers. We need to cherish those relationships, and that's what's needed for us to go forward. No need to panic. Just be better prepared.
Nice. So we've seen from a personal skills perspective and from a technology perspective how the finance function has kind of been forced to evolve over the last few years. And we had a question from Mokgwatsane Mohale, who's asking, what do you see as the future of the finance qualification? So how do you see that kind of evolving and adapting?
I think the focus is going to shift towards the analysis and working with automation tools and AI and things like that. And I know I've said it a couple of times and used those phrases a couple of times during this conversation, But that's literally where it is going to be going. Historically, we were the ones processing data and making sure the output is there and making sure the numbers reconcile. We should prepare ourselves for a world where all of that happens automatically and where our role is primarily to analyze the results and to make decisions based on that.
Nice. Lorato?
I have to agree. Data analysis will be important. Strategic is important. And in our data analysis, not just analyze and say, oh, cash revenue is up by 12% and all of that. By data analysis, it's being able to interpret that data and use it so that you can support the business in the long-term and short-term strategy. And for you to do that, you have to also be strategic mindset. So I think the finance professional, the education around finance, where it's going to be moving to, it's going to move towards data analysis, and it's going to move to strategy, how you understand strategy, how you implement it, and how you integrate everything with finance.
It's been so interesting in conversations with CFOs over the last sort of couple of years, where you see how diverse that finance team has become, where traditionally it would maybe be a group of pure traditional finance professionals, and now you see we've got data analysts, we've got business intelligence professionals making up this full complement to get all of those kind of rich and deep insights. So yeah, definitely see that evolving over the next few months. We still have an opportunity for a couple more questions. So if you do have any, please feel free to type them in the chat. And while we're waiting for those to come in, we had another question from Isam Pila, and he was asking about the importance of risk management to avoid any negativity in the event of calamity. So how much of our strategies and processes in terms of maybe risk management were in place prior to COVID-19 hitting us, and how many were forced to be developed on the spot?
I think I spoke about this in depth in my CFO talk, that we went into a crisis, which was COVID, and crisis management is risk management. And risk management is how can I cope in the event of anything that disrupts my business. So operationally, financially, reputationally, and everything. So it's now time to look at that and look at how you responded in all of those 4 aspects when COVID hit. If you did very well in all of those aspects, then you had a good risk management strategy. And if you didn't, it's time for you to now adopt and adapt. But just know that managing a crisis in any way is actually depending on risk management. There's no crisis. It's just an event that requires a risk management strategy to be implemented.
Sure.
Or to be put into action.
That's one way of reframing it, Lorato. That's a very positive take and outlook on that. Jordaan?
What I find interesting about this question is the fact that none of us had a COVID-19 plan to invoke when that's hit. So I think none of the disaster recovery plans that we had catered for a situation like this. We catered for an airplane hitting the building and moving to another site and all of that. But this is completely different. We had to work remotely, retain our customers and our operations. So I think all that tells us is that you need to be able to adapt your risk approach. It's always going to be fast moving. And what I think is also important to say is that with all of this remote working and the way that Lorato has said, we're not going back to the old normal. So this is a lot of what we're seeing today is probably permanent. We need to understand that that gives us new risks that we need to deal with. Something like compliance, something like cybersecurity, all of that has changed. And we need to ensure that whatever we do in terms of our approach on risk adapts to this new normal as quickly as possible.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much. And then, sorry, Lorato, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jordaan, so with all these risks coming up, cybersecurity and compliance, are we now finance people or compliance managers? How do we navigate it with our compliance people, with ourselves? How are we navigating these new risks? Where do the responsibilities start and end with the finance people?
I think, first of all, it depends on the organization where that responsibility sits. So that's going to differ from organization to organization. But I think a lot of these elements are part of the decision-making spheres of CFOs. If you think about financial systems or payroll systems as an example, you've probably got a very big role to play in the decision-making with regards to which system you're implementing. And if you currently, where we're at, have two options to go with, and one of those options are cloud, you are going to be much better off. You're going to be a lot more future-proof in terms of a cloud platform that's going to help address something like cybersecurity. And now that you've asked it, I just have to quickly explain. The big advantage of cloud products in terms of cybersecurity is that you're always on the latest version of the software. Whereas with the on-premise system, you are reliant on updates and things like that. With a cloud system, it's not the case. You're always on that most recent version. So whenever a vulnerability is identified and the vendor addresses that, automatically that gap is closed. So it's a massive, massive benefit, especially to also smaller and medium-sized companies that don't have advanced IT infrastructure or teams to deal with things like cyber threats. That's where you need to be able to trust whatever software you're implementing in your business, that something like cybersecurity is covered.
Happy with that response, Lerato?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Perfect. So when we started off our webinar, there was one initial question, and it was the title of the webinar as well, and it was, are we going to be okay? So Lerato, I'd like to hear from you. I think I know the answer, but share some final tips and advice with us.
Definitely, we're going to be okay. Technology is your friend. Embrace it. People are your friends. Embrace them and adapt.
Awesome. Thank you. Jordaan?
We're absolutely going to be okay. It's not going to help us to panic. Be prepared as you can be. Embrace technology, like we said, and I think focus on what's important for your business. Keep to the old principles and your working strategies. As long as you keep your eyes on the goal, on your customers, on your revenue, on your cash flow, things will work out fine.
Perfect. And I see we have Donald, who also made a comment in the chat, who said, we have Sage Cloud Accounting and Cloud Payroll, and he highly recommends it. So thanks, Donald. We've seen you at several of the previous sessions as well, so welcome back. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff happening next weekend. As most of us are probably aware, we've got the Finance Indaba coming up. So that's going to be taking place on the 15th of October. You can go ahead and register by using that link on the screen there. I know that one of my colleagues will be typing and posting that in the chat as well. So you can go ahead and see the full agenda. We've got 10 live speaking sessions happening, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and wrapping up at 7 o'clock in the evening. So if you haven't already had a chance to register for that, please do go ahead and do that now. You'll see there's going to be lots of exciting things happening on the day, like treasure hunts, leaderboards, and we've got some of the most insightful and up-to-date presentations happening with a panel of CFO discussions, as well as various conversations with other partners as well. So if you haven't registered, you still have 9 days in which you can do so. And at this point, I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank both Jordaan and Lerato for being here this morning. Thank you very much for sharing your tips and your insights with us. Really valued your comments, and I know that our audience took a lot out of it today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Jordaan.
It's our absolute pleasure. Perfect. And thank you very much to all of our attendees who tuned in today. We know that we all have very hectic and busy schedules. So thank you all for being here this morning. And we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming Finance Indaba Network session. So thanks, everybody. Take care and have a great day. Cheers. Bye-bye.